What's going on, everyone? Happy Saturday. Hopefully everyone is doing well, staying safe, healthy, and having a great weekend so far. If you had to take a COVID test, flu test, or a test for some other virus, I hope you have tested negative. If you did test positive, I hope you have a full and speedy recovery with no long-term issues and no long COVID issues. It is time now for the Saturday edition of the Virus Update for Saturday, April 5th, 2025. If you're new to my channel, welcome to my channel. This is where I do the daily virus update on all those viruses that can make us sick. There's a lot of viruses out there, and you need to be informed on each and every one of them. That's what I do here on my channel each and every day to help keep you safe and informed of what is going on. Want to do just that? Subscribe to my channel down below. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Hit that notification bell. Share this video with anyone you know. And of course, leave your comments down below. Already, we do have several things to take a look at today. We do have some news stories, and then we got several sports reports today. We'll get to that in a minute. You know how when you watch the news on weekends, often the sports report is a little longer. There's a lot of sports activity on the weekend. Well, there's a lot of sports activity when it comes to players being ill. Yeah, I'll explain when we get to that. We're going to take a look at some daily data, and we do have some new numbers in from CJS with weekly COVID numbers and even some flu data as well. So we'll get to that as well. All right, starting off over in New Zealand. Flu season comes early as record high cases spark warnings. Yeah, apparently New Zealand is dealing with issues with flu, and apparently it's getting an early start. It says a record number of influenza cases for January to March has been seen over in Australia, with infections rising more than 50% higher than the same period last year, and this apparently is also starting to occur in New Zealand as well. So this is rather concerning, and I think I said this the other day. Oftentimes what happens over there could be an indicator of what's going to happen here down the line, but they're pretty much following what we just had happen, which was a real bad flu season. I wouldn't say it was a record here, but it was an awfully bad flu season here in the United States. So I think we're ping-ponging back and forth, and it seems like each year flu is getting worse these days. Yeah, not a good thing to see whatsoever. Mexico reports its first human case of H5N1 bird flu, and it sounds like this case was in a 3-year-old girl, and sounds like this person is hospitalized and in serious condition. We do not know which particular variant or strain of bird flu it is yet. There has been one that hit in the United States, I believe Canada as well, and that one tends to be severe. Have not heard which variant it is yet. Now, when it comes to COVID, let's talk about what's going on with COVID variants. Here's the latest. This is from Mike Honey on X. Here's the latest picture, variant picture for Canada to mid-March, and the XEC variant is still dominant but has declined to 34%. LP.8.1 variant is challenging at around 24%, probably overhauling the JN.1 and other variants. So yeah, you can see here is that LP.8.1. It is rising there, but that rise has slowed a little bit, so we'll continue to watch that. And here is the latest variant picture with a global scope to mid-March. Growth of the LP.8.1 variant seemed to plateau at around 34%, with the XEC variant declining to 30%. Recent sample sizes are smaller, so this might not be representative. And we can see here, yeah, its growth has really slowed down at this point. JN.1, take a look at this. That actually has gone back up a little bit once again, so that's something we'll have to keep an eye on. Alrighty, now moving to this. Elementary student diagnosed with whooping cough. This is in Memphis, Tennessee area. A third-grade student at the Graham Wood Elementary School has been diagnosed with pertussis, better known as whooping cough. Yeah, whooping cough. We've been watching the cases go up, and it's the first case we've seen in a school in a while. I did add this to the school illness thread. Now, something else I'm going to be adding to one of the tracking threads over on my site is all of these issues. Yes, there are several sports-related illnesses today. And, you know, every time I keep seeing these batches, we'll call them batches because there seems to be a lot of them at once, I often question myself, have these people had COVID? And is there long COVID hitting these sports players? Because we're seeing the frequency of sports players getting ill going up. Remember that NBA, National Basketball Association, was getting hit really hard all winter. And you know what? it's still going on. You're going to see some of that today, too, as well. MLB is now starting to have problems, and it's starting to get a little bit more frequent. Several Reds players, including their manager, is benched, is out, because they're dealing with illness. They're not saying what the illness is, but apparently this is happening in Milwaukee, and here's the problem with that. With it happening in Milwaukee, Milwaukee Brewers were just dealing with an illness of their own. Yes, one of their players, Chad Patrick, is dealing with an illness, or was dealing with an illness prior to them playing with the Reds. So somehow along the way, the Reds picked up an illness, but we do know, we can trace back that the Brewers, Chad Patrick, was dealing with an illness prior to them meeting with the Reds. So is that how they got it? I don't know, but interesting to note that, hey, Milwaukee was also dealing with an illness prior to that meeting. And then we come to this, the Pittsburgh Pirates outfielder, Tommy Pham, pulled out on Friday due to an illness, and it goes on. There's stuff I'm going to be adding. This is the illness tracking thread on my site. I got more stuff to add to this. Check this out. Klay Thompson, who plays for, I believe, the Dallas Mavericks. Yeah, it's listed here. He had to leave the game early. They were playing. The game that they were playing, he had to leave early because, you guessed it, illness. And the Clippers beat them in that game. Sounds like it did not go well. Then it goes over to the LA Lakers. Bronny James Jr. is out due to an illness. And you may recall his father, LeBron James, for a while was dealing with an illness. I think that's been several weeks now. But now Bronny James Jr. is dealing with an illness. And I saw several other names listed on Google. So what is going on in sports? It seems like something that started out to be a big issue for the NBA. It's maybe starting to be a thing in the MLB as well. I mean, there's been quite a few illness cases already this season for the MLB, and the season has only just started. Several illnesses we didn't even mention about here on the virus updates. So, yeah, I'm concerned what's going on in sports, and we do know people who have had COVID, who rush back into their, workout routine and whatnot, they tend to, there is research that says it tends to increase their chances of going on to having long-term problems, long COVID. So, yeah, this is something obviously we're going to have to continue to follow, especially MLB. Wastewater Scan put out their weekly update. I think we're going to go over this tomorrow. Tomorrow will be Wastewater Sunday. In case you did not see yesterday, hey, the measles outbreak in Texas continues to grow. 481 cases have been identified since late January. That's in Texas, but on the national scale, it's 607 cases. So, yeah, that's something that we are very concerned about. Also, recapping something from this week, the flu positivity rate in the UK is 6.2%. And when we take a look at COVID levels, yeah, the COVID cases, they went up a little bit. 1,128 cases. That was up by 175, 18.4% increase. Haven't seen any of those alarming stories that say, oh, COVID cases went up by 18.4%, but the point is they are rising. It's just not a massive rise, and good chances are that the majority of the cases that are in the UK are probably not being picked up because of at-home testing or people just not testing at all. Deaths, there were 64 this week. That was up by 2. It says 3.2%, but they're not doing a huge number of deaths right now, which is some good news. Now, taking a look at what is going on with bird migration, and remember, the purple colors here, that's low. The orange and yellow, that's high, and we do see the bird migration is measured in millions of birds in flight. So it's starting off with 8.3 million birds, and you're going to watch. That number will go up higher, as you can see here. And bird migration traffic, it is high in the southeast again today. A little bit of traffic in the northeast, some in the Pacific Northwest. Why are we tracking this? Why did I start using this tool? There's a reason for it. Because bird flu is such an issue. And we are seeing, look at Texas here, some migration there. So some migration out of Mexico. And we do know, you just saw there's a human case in Mexico. We do know that bird flu is an issue there as well. So obviously, this is something that we are concerned about. When birds migrate, the potential for birds carrying disease does go up. Let's take a look at what's going on with the air qualities today in the United States, and you are going to see some areas dealing with some problems when this map finally does load. You can see there's a few problems in the southeast. More problems on the west coast today than we were dealing with yesterday. This is not some good news. It's something that's probably going to last maybe for a couple of days or two because of the weather pattern that has set up. And the Gulf Coast, Louisiana and Texas, still some yellows there as well. Also, a few mixed in yellows across the Midwest and some portions of the plains today. Taking a look at what's going on with tree pollen, really high levels along the Carolina coast today, and moderate to near high levels back across the plains today. Eventually, that front is going to dip southeast and eventually come through. I do know that you are dealing with some really bad flooding, historical flooding across portions of Kentucky, Tennessee, Missouri, Arkansas. Yeah, you've been dealing with a really bad stretch of weather as of lately. Taking a look at what's going on in Pinellas County, Florida. You can see here I had to refresh it. Look at that. The old cardiac arrest call is showing up. That's not a good one. And we're seeing a sick person, we're seeing injury, and yeah, a few things going on. Not terribly busy today. We'll take it, but we're not happy about that cardiac arrest call. That's never a good thing. All right, let's see if there's anything from Philadelphia yet today. We're recording a little bit earlier than we have been the past couple of days, and used to be Philadelphia would update the EMS calls usually in the 8, 9 o'clock hour, and sometimes on the weekends as of lately. They've been late and nothing. It is 12:15 in the morning, or in the afternoon, I should say, and nothing yet. Hopefully not busy in Montgomery County. It has not been busy, and let's see. It's staying that way. Just 9 calls right now. But sometimes it's the type of calls, and even had that today. Respiratory emergency a couple times. Dizziness, seizures, a sickable episode, hemorrhaging. Not terribly busy. Hopefully we can see the same thing in Chester County, Pennsylvania. Take a look at that. The call volume is low today. Just a couple respiratory calls and a few other things, and that's it. Glad to report that things are finally less busy. How about the hospitals? We saw the EMS not being busy, so maybe the hospitals are not doing bad. Well, we need to refresh this. And we can see here, overall, nothing like what we were seeing a couple months ago. Matter of fact, things are doing really well. I think this Carlisle, no, that finally did update. It's a behavioral health issue. I believe there was a hospital out that way that was not updated in several days. A couple of overcrowding issues in the Lehigh Valley, which that's Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton, Pennsylvania. It's almost in northeastern Pennsylvania. It's eastern Pennsylvania. St. Luke's, Carbon campus, some problems there. How about southeast Pennsylvania? We are seeing one in, all kinds of issues going on at Mercy Fitzgerald campus. That's over in the upper Darby area of southeast Pennsylvania. It's just outside of Philadelphia. They're definitely dealing with some problems there. How about New Jersey? Let's refresh this. Yesterday, New Jersey had no problems. Cooper University Hospital has a psychiatric problem. And University Hospital also has a psychiatric problem. Other than that, no issues there. Taking a look at New York State from yesterday, they had 1,389 new cases reported, and hospitalizations in New York State was at 783, and 77 in the ICU. That is one state that the LP.8.1 variant actually did something, because cases there, they never really fully went down, and hospitalizations never fully went down. If another wave is going to come in the summertime, well, they're starting from a higher baseline than they have with previous waves. You can see back in the fall, it was lower, and leading up to last summer's wave, it was lower. So this would be a high level to start off with. Would not be happy about that. All right, let's take a look at some emergency department visits diagnosed with COVID. Then we will do some data from CJS, and that will be it for today's video. But I must tell you, there's quite a bit of data from CJS today. All right, these are people who showed up at the emergency department diagnosed with COVID. The majority of the states are not doing bad. There are some states, though, where things are rising. Nationally, hey, it's dropping. Fantastic. Alabama, yeah, it's really dropping there. Alaska, a little bit of a bumpy ride as of recently, up a little bit once again. Arizona's dropping. Arkansas is dropping. California's dropping. I'm just going to read through some of these states really fast that are dropping. Colorado's dropping. Connecticut's dropping. Delaware, little hiccup at the end. Not certain where that's going to head. Hopefully it will continue back down. Washington, D.C. has been up a little bit this spring. Florida, not dropping real fast. Georgia's up a little bit. Guam is down. Hawaii at the end, you're up a little bit as well. Idaho's kind of bouncing around. Illinois has slowed off a little bit. Indiana is dropping. Iowa is dropping once again. Kansas is dropping. Kentucky is dropping. Louisiana is dropping. Maine is dropping. Maryland has leveled off. Massachusetts has leveled off. Maybe going to start dropping again. Michigan is dropping. Mississippi is dropping. Montana, you're bouncing around a little bit at the end. Overall, you have been dropping. Nebraska, dropping slightly. Nevada's going up slightly. New Hampshire is dropping once again. New Jersey has leveled off. New Mexico, maybe a slight rise at the end. Not terribly concerned. New York is up slightly. North Carolina is dropping. North Dakota is dropping. Ohio, look at that, not dropping anymore, so we'll have to keep our eyes on that. Oregon is dropping. Pennsylvania is dropping. Rhode Island is dropping. South Carolina, a little bit of a bump at the end. South Dakota is dropping. Tennessee is dropping. Texas is dropping. Utah, yeah, we'll say that's dropping. It's not dropping much, but it is dropping. Vermont is dropping. Virginia has leveled off a little bit. Washington is holding steady. West Virginia is dropping still. Wisconsin's dropping once again, and Wyoming is flat. Alrighty, let's take a look at some of that data from CJS. And I told you, there's a lot of it today, as you can see. But before we get to that, this is a lot we're going to have to read here. So I think we both should pause and take our hydration break. I forgot to do it yesterday. If I forget to do it, call me out on that down in the comment section, please, because it's important that we keep ourselves hydrated. You need to stay hydrated, and I need to stay hydrated. Alrighty, wasn't that refreshing? Alright, let's get into some of these numbers. Some of them are going to be daily, some of them are going to be weekly numbers. Starting off with Thursday, Florida reported 358 new cases, that was their daily number for Thursday, and 12 new deaths. New York, 1,414 new cases. Puerto Rico, 337 new cases, a number that includes Wednesday evening updates since it was too late to post for Wednesday. Okay. Colorado weekly, a test case positivity rate of 2.6%, which is mentioned in the video, and 6 deaths reported by the CDC data tracker. Connecticut weekly number, 9 deaths reported by the CDC data tracker. Indiana weekly, 814 new cases and 9 deaths reported by the CDC. Kentucky, 761 new positive tests and 21 deaths reported. Massachusetts, 823 new cases and 7 new deaths. Minnesota, weekly, 776 new cases and 6 new deaths. North Carolina, weekly, still, wow, this is not good, 465 state-reported hospitalizations for COVID-like illness. The CDC reported 280 COVID-related hospitalizations in the Friday weekly update, and 31 reported deaths by the CDC data tracker. You're still dealing with a lot of deaths. Remember, just yesterday, we talked about North Carolina deaths, and that was still when it comes to flu, that was still a double-digit number as well. New Mexico, weekly, 227 new cases and 1 death reported by CDC. New Jersey, 1,554 new cases, 9 deaths. This is a weekly number. Remember, New Jersey is weekly now. Utah, weekly, 219 people added to their living with COVID count and 1 new death. Friday numbers, some daily ones first. Florida, daily number, 272 new cases and 8 new cases reported today, and 2,116 new cases and 42 deaths. I think what he meant to say was 272 new cases on Friday and 8 new deaths reported on that day. And the weekly total is 2,116 cases and 42 deaths reported over the past 7 days. The CDC also reported 385 COVID hospitalizations in Florida. New York, daily, 1,408 new reported, that should say reported, cases reported today, meaning Friday, and 8,352 reported this week, to go along with 812 reported hospitalizations and 146 deaths, many of them from earlier this year. They did do a death dump. A lot of times there's states that say, oh, wait a second, this was a death, that was a death, and then all of a sudden a big dump gets added, and that's what happened here with New York State. So that goes back to January and March. Puerto Rico, daily, 173 new cases reported today, and 1,167 cases reported over the past 7 days, along with 5 deaths, all of which were reported yesterday. All right, here's the rest of the week's figures, and we're just going to read the numbers here. We're going to skip the sources that they came from to save time. Alabama, 195 CDC reported hospitalizations and 23 deaths. Arizona, 694 new cases reported on Wednesday and 10 deaths reported. California, 2,059 new positive tests, 494 hospitalizations, and 24 new state reported deaths, and 42 new flu deaths, putting the Golden State over 1,500 viral flu deaths this season. Yeah, that's a lot of flu deaths. Georgia, 227 hospitalizations and 16 deaths reported. Idaho, 449 emergency department visits and 4 deaths reported. Illinois, 303 reported hospitalizations and 20 deaths. Iowa, Kansas, 7 deaths reported by the CDC. So in this case, both states reported the same number, I guess. Louisiana, 886 emergency department visits, a 4.6% test case positivity rate, slightly up from 4.4% last week, and 8 new deaths. Michigan, 372 hospitalizations, and 87 deaths reported by the CDC, many of which were from February to early March. The state reported 12 new COVID deaths. Already another one of those death dumps, and I think he puts a little notes prior to this, and he did mention that in there. Mississippi, 15 deaths reported this week. Missouri, 14 deaths. Nebraska, a 7% test case positivity rate, which is unchanged from last week. Ohio, 280 reported hospitalizations and 16 deaths reported by the CDC data tracker. And I should also mention the CDC data tracker currently shows Ohio with 53,368 COVID deaths. Sorry, that gets cut off. The rest of this is going to probably get cut off by my camera here, but let's see, I can zoom out here. And I should also mention Ohio. I don't know if they're going to continue weekly updates. It sounds like that may be ending. We'll find out next week. Oklahoma, a test case positivity rate of 8.9%, down from 9.4% last week, and 13 deaths reported this week. Pennsylvania, still 620 CDC reported hospitalizations, and 16 deaths reported this week. South Carolina, 132 reported hospitalizations and 13 deaths reported. Tennessee, 182 CDC reported hospitalizations, 24 deaths reported this week. Texas reports 2,057 new cases and 512 reported hospitalizations and 35 deaths. I get it, Texas is a big state, but that still is a rather high number. West Virginia, 363 new positive tests, a test case positivity rate of 4.84%, slightly down from 5%, just over 5% last week. 4 deaths were reported. Wisconsin reports 432 new positive tests, a test case positivity rate of 4%, down from 4.1% last week, and 12 deaths reported. The CDC district reported 737 deaths since last week and currently shows 1,225,657 total U.S. COVID deaths since this all started, up from 1,224,920 it was showing last week at this time. The death count for this week is slightly inflated because of CDC data dumps from Michigan and New York mentioned above. All right, thank you so much, CJS Charles, for adding this data for us. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you put this in my comment section and I can share this with everyone. Alrighty, folks, that does it for the Saturday edition of the Virus Update. Of course, we'll have another Virus Update again tomorrow. I suspect with the way things are going, we may have some more sports illnesses. I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. If I see anything else, I'm going to be adding that to my tracking thread. Of course, my website is datareport.info. Go check that out if you never had. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe down below. Share this video with anyone you know. Share my website with anyone you know. And of course, leave your comments down below. Subscribe, all those things. I will see you all again next time, which will be tomorrow. Until I see you again tomorrow, stay safe, everyone, and have a fantastic Saturday afternoon. Thanks for watching.